What happens when a talk show host tries to challenge one of the respected actors of his generation, a man who has spent 5 decades letting his work speak louder than words? What happens when that challenge meets a level of calm that simply cannot be shaken? You are about to witness one of the unforgettable confrontations ever seen on daytime television. The moment when Joy Behar tried to break through the composure of Denzel Washington, and instead found herself facing a man whose quiet dignity spoke louder than any accusation. The studio of The View felt different that day. It felt almost sacred. The questions were sharp, meant to provoke. The man in the guest chair refused to be drawn into conflict. As the conversation unfolded, millions watched as one of America's actors demonstrated something powerful. Real strength doesn't need to raise its voice. Before we continue, think about this for a moment. How does someone stay calm when the pressure is designed to push them? Keep watching, because what happened next reveals what grace under pressure looks like. That Thursday morning, the studio carried a kind of energy. People had spread the word that Denzel Washington would be appearing, and the anticipation in the room felt different from the celebrity excitement. This wasn't another actor promoting a film. This was Denzel Washington, a 2-time Academy Award winner, a performer who had brought icons like Malcolm X and Hurricane Carter to life. A man who had delivered performances across decades. Someone who had remained married to the same woman for more than 40 years in an industry where relationships often fade quickly. When Denzel walked onto the set, the applause erupted immediately. It was loud, genuine, and sustained. At 69 years old, he carried himself with the authority of someone who had nothing left to prove. His face was steady and observant, reflecting the experience of a lifetime spent studying behavior and portraying it with honesty on screen. There was also something about his presence. Before becoming a global star, Denzel had once considered becoming a preacher. His faith remained a part of his life, and he often spoke about crediting God for every opportunity he received. That spiritual grounding seemed to follow him, giving him a sense of balance that made the chaos around him feel insignificant. He settled into the guest chair with ease. No exaggerated gestures, no charm, just a respectful nod to the audience and a simple thank you. Yet somehow, that small moment carried weight than most grand introductions. Whoopi Goldberg welcomed him warmly, clearly showing respect from one legend to another. Sarah Haynes looked slightly nervous, almost as if she felt the weight of the moment. The audience sat quietly, sensing they were watching something. One person appeared ready to steer the conversation in a different direction. Joy Behar leaned forward slightly, her expression suggesting she intended to challenge the tone of the interview. Denzel to The View. Whoopi began. It's such an honor to have you. We'd love to talk about your career, your legacy, and everything you've contributed to American cinema. Denzel nodded politely. Thank you, Whoopi, he replied in his unmistakable voice. I appreciate the invitation. It's good to be... For a moment, everything felt relaxed. Then Joy leaned forward. Suddenly, the mood shifted. Denzel, she said, her tone sharpening slightly. Let's talk about something real. The other hosts glanced at each other. You've had this career, 2 Oscars and countless iconic roles. Let's be honest about something. You won your Oscar playing a slave and your second playing a corrupt cop. A quiet tension spread through the room. Some people say Hollywood only rewards actors when they portray degrading roles, Joy continued. What does it say that your biggest recognition came from characters like those? The question hung in the air. It was clearly meant to push him, to force either criticism of the industry or a defensive explanation. The studio became completely silent. Denzel didn't react the way many expected. Instead, he looked at Joy calmly, almost as if he were carefully considering the perspective behind the question. That's a way to frame my career, he said slowly. Then he offered a different viewpoint. In Glory, he explained, I played a man who fought and died for freedom, a man who refused to accept the limitations others placed on him, a man who showed courage and dignity. He paused, allowing the words to settle. If someone only sees the word slave when they look at that role, he continued, that might say more about how they're viewing the story than about the role itself. The studio remained silent as he continued. And Alonzo Harris in Training Day wasn't a corrupt cop, he said. He was complicated, intelligent, charismatic, ultimately tragic. Then he added something that shifted the discussion. Shakespeare wrote villains too, he said calmly. Are actors only supposed to play heroes? A few people in the audience murmured quietly. Or is the expectation that black actors should only portray characters who are noble and uncomplicated? The question was delivered calmly, but its impact was undeniable. For a moment, Joy seemed caught off guard. Still, she continued. Well, don't you think there's a pattern in Hollywood? She asked. Black actors winning awards for kinds of roles while being overlooked for others? Denzel remained composed. There are patterns, he replied evenly. Throughout my career, I've played lawyers, coaches, journalists, pilots, gangsters, historical figures, fathers, brothers, and sons. He paused for a moment. I've also directed films. Then he leaned back slightly in his chair, his expression, in that moment, something became clear. To everyone watching, because sometimes the strongest response isn't loud. Sometimes the powerful answer is delivered with calm, clarity, and complete confidence. Denzel Washington showed that. That's what makes Denzel Washington so respected. Denzel Washington's calm demeanor was inspiring. Denzel has produced films, performed on Broadway. Denzel continued calmly. If someone wants to reduce Denzel's 50-year career to 2 roles just because those were the ones that won Oscars, that is their choice. It is not the full picture of Denzel's career. Denzel briefly glanced around the studio before adding, Denzel has been fortunate enough to work for 5 decades. Think about that for a moment. How many actors of any background can honestly say the thing about their own careers? Then Denzel paused. Denzel does not spend time focusing on what Denzel did not receive. Denzel focuses on the work. The work of Denzel speaks for itself. For a moment, the room stayed quiet. Joy quickly shifted direction. Let's talk about Denzel's life then, she said. Denzel has been married to Pauletta for more than 40 years. That is incredibly rare in Hollywood. Some people wonder if a relationship like that can truly survive in this industry, or if sometimes it is more about maintaining an image. Denzel did not answer immediately. Denzel sat silently for a moment. When Denzel finally spoke, Denzel's voice had softened. It was quieter and more personal. Pauletta is the decision Denzel has ever made, Denzel said. Not Denzel's career, not any role Denzel has played. Pauletta is the one. Denzel smiled slightly. Pauletta has been Denzel's partner, Denzel's friend, Denzel's foundation for more than 4 decades. Denzel and Pauletta have raised 4 children together. Denzel and Pauletta have gone through everything life can throw at Denzel and Pauletta, together. Then Denzel looked directly at Joy. Denzel is not going to sit and try to convince anyone that Denzel's marriage is real. Denzel continued, Denzel's marriage is real to Denzel. Denzel's marriage is real to Pauletta. Denzel's marriage is real to Denzel's children. Another short pause followed. If someone chooses to believe it is an image that is their decision, Denzel would suggest people take a closer look at their own relationships before questioning Denzel's relationship with Pauletta. The comment was calm. It carried undeniable weight. Joy's expression tightened slightly. I am not questioning Denzel's marriage, she responded quickly. I am asking how Denzel has managed to maintain Denzel's marriage in an industry that's famous for destroying relationships. Denzel answered without hesitation. By putting God, Denzel said. By putting family second. By putting Denzel's career third. The simplicity of the statement hung in the air. By making choices. By being present. By remembering that fame is temporary but family is forever. Denzel leaned back slightly. It is not complicated, Joy, Denzel added. It just requires commitment from Denzel and Pauletta. As Denzel continued, Denzel's voice warmed with pride. Denzel's son, John David, is an actor now, Denzel said. You may have seen John David in Tenet or Black Klansman. John David is building John David's path, creating John David's own identity. A proud smile appeared on Denzel's face. Denzel is more proud of the man John David has become than any role John David has played. Denzel gestured lightly as Denzel spoke. That is what matters most to Denzel. Not the awards sitting on Denzel's shelf, the values inside Denzel's children's hearts. Then Denzel glanced toward the audience. Katya, Malcolm, Olivia. They are all finding their way in life. They are people. They work hard. They treat others with respect. Denzel nodded slightly. That is Pauletta's influence much as Denzel's influence. Maybe even more. Pauletta held the family together during the months when Denzel was away making movies. Pauletta made sacrifices nobody ever sees. Denzel paused thoughtfully. You want to know the secret? Denzel asked. Then Denzel answered Denzel's question. There is no secret. Denzel simply decides Denzel is going to make it work. Then Denzel puts in the effort every single day. Denzel shrugged gently, just like anything in life that is worth having. Joy was not finished. Denzel is known for being very private, she continued. Denzel rarely speaks about politics, takes strong public positions. Some people see that as restraint. Others believe it is a form of cowardice. that someone with Denzel's influence has a responsibility to speak out and that silence becomes complicity. The accusation was sharp. The studio seemed to hold its breath. Denzel remained completely composed. "Who says Denzel is silent?" Denzel asked quietly. Even though Denzel's voice was soft, every word carried clearly through the studio. "Denzel speaks through Denzel's work." Denzel continued. "Through the roles Denzel chooses. Through the stories Denzel helps tell." Denzel began listing examples. Was Malcolm X not a statement? Was the hurricane not a statement? Was Fences not about family, responsibility, and the Black experience in America? Denzel leaned back, slightly Denzel's voice gaining strength. Denzel spent 3 years preparing to portray Malcolm X. 3 years. Denzel spoke with conviction. Denzel read everything Malcolm X wrote. Denzel spoke with people who knew Malcolm X. Denzel studied Malcolm X's speeches word by word. Denzel paused. Denzel did not just play Malcolm X. Denzel lived with Malcolm X's story. Another moment passed before Denzel continued, and when that film came out, young people who had never even heard of Malcolm X suddenly wanted to learn about Malcolm X. Denzel nodded. That is impact. That is influence. Then Denzel added something that made the entire studio reflect, not a tweet that disappears an hour later. Denzel shook Denzel's head slightly. The idea that the only valid form of speaking out's through social media or public rallies. That is a very modern way of thinking. Then Denzel concluded calmly. Denzel has been making statements Denzel's career. Denzel just chooses to do it through art, of sound bites. Joy leaned forward again. "In moments like the ones we are living through now," she insisted, "with everything happening in the country, does Denzel not feel obligated to speak more directly?" Denzel looked at her carefully. "Obligated to whom?" Denzel asked. "People who want Denzel to say what they have already decided Denzel should say?" Denzel continued calmly. "People who will criticize Denzel no matter what Denzel says because it does not perfectly match what they expected." Then Denzel leaned forward slightly. "Denzel is 69 years old," Denzel said. "Denzel has been Black in America Denzel's life." The studio remained completely silent. Denzel does not need anyone to explain to Denzel what the struggle looks like. Denzel has lived it. Denzel paused briefly. Denzel has portrayed it. Denzel has tried to illuminate it through Denzel's work. Then Denzel finished with certainty. If that is not enough for some people, Denzel can live with that. Denzel leaned back in Denzel's chair. Denzel is not here to satisfy everyone's expectations. Joy seemed to think she had found an angle. "But some people would say that's a position," she said. "You've made it. You're rich, successful, protected. It's easier to stay out of trouble when you're not dealing with the problems everyone else faces." Denzel let out a laugh. There was no humor in it. "Not affected?" He repeated slowly. "Joy, I grew up in Mount Vernon, New York." His tone changed, becoming more direct. "My dad was a minister. My mom ran a beauty shop. I went to school. I've been followed in stores. I've been pulled over for driving while Black." The studio grew quiet again. "I've experienced every reality that comes with being a man in this country." Then his voice grew firmer. "The difference is, I don't use those experiences to make shows of outrage." He paused. "I use them to inform my work." His words came steadily on purpose. "I put them into characters, into stories, into roles that might help people understand something they didn't understand before." He leaned a bit forward. "That's my contribution." Another brief pause. "And it's not any less meaningful just because it doesn't come with a hashtag." For a moment, something personal showed in his expression. "You want to know what truly shaped me?" He continued. "The Girls' Club of Mount Vernon." His voice softened. "When I was a kid, heading in the direction that place saved me. It gave me structure. It gave me mentors. It showed me what was possible." He nodded slowly. "I've been giving back to them for decades, not for publicity, not for attention. I do it because I remember what it feels like to be a young Black kid without direction." He looked directly at Joy again. "I remember how powerful it is when someone simply believes in you." There was a hint of disappointment in his voice now. "But you didn't ask me about that, did you?" The room stayed silent. "You didn't ask what I've been doing for my community for the 50 years. He gestured slightly. "You asked why I'm not on media shouting about politics." He shook his head gently. "Because apparently that's the contribution that counts now." Then he looked toward the audience. "You know what I've learned in 69 years?" he asked. He answered away. "Talk is cheap." A few heads nodded in the crowd. Everybody has an opinion. Everybody has something to say. Another pause. The real question is, what are you actually doing? He put a hand lightly against his chest. I've been doing the work. For 50 years. His voice stayed calm. The conviction was clear. Building a career. Raising a family. Supporting my community. Helping causes I believe in. He leaned back a bit. Just because I don't announce it every day doesn't mean it isn't happening. Joy shifted again, searching for a direction. All right, she said. Let's talk about your faith then. You've been very open about being a Christian. Some people find that inspiring. Others think it's hypocritical for someone in Hollywood, someone who has played characters, to claim strong religious devotion. Denzel raised one eyebrow a bit. Hypocritical? He repeated. Then he explained calmly. Because I'm an actor? He gave a shrug. Playing a character doesn't mean you agree with that character's behavior. That's the point of acting. He spoke thoughtfully now. You step into someone's life, someone else's struggles, someone's flaws. He paused. You do it to reveal something about nature. Then his tone softened again. My faith is the foundation of everything The sincerity in his voice filled the room. It got me through moments when nothing else could. It kept me humble when success could have made me arrogant. It gave me strength when failure could have broken me. He looked around the studio calmly. I don't expect everyone to understand that. Another pause. I'm not asking anyone to share it. Then he said quietly, but I'm not going to apologize for it. His voice became more reflective. You know what my mom used to tell me when I was young? He smiled a bit. She said, Son man gives the award, but God gives the reward. He let the words settle. I've never forgotten that. He gestured lightly. The Oscars, the recognition, the accolades, those are awards given by people. Then his tone deepened. The reward is waking up every day with purpose. Another pause. Having a family that loves you. Being at peace with what you've done. He put a hand over his heart. That reward comes from God. For a moment, he seemed lost in thought. I almost became a preacher, he said. Before acting found me. Maybe before I found it. A few people in the audience leaned forward. My mom believed there was something waiting for me. She prayed for me. She believed I had a purpose. He smiled a bit. In a way, acting became my ministry. The studio was completely quiet now. Every role is like a message. Every character is a chance to reveal something about life, about people, about the struggles we all face. He nodded. That's how I see what I do. Then he turned back toward Joy with an almost gentle expression. So when someone asks if it's hypocritical for an actor to be a Christian, he paused. They're missing the point. His voice carried conviction. Acting is my calling, like preaching would have been. He spread his hands a bit. I'm using the gifts I was given in service of something than myself. Then he concluded simply, there's nothing about that. Joy looked visibly frustrated now. All right, she said, let's talk about the work itself. You've had iconic roles. You've also turned down parts that later became massive hits for other actors. Movies like Seth-In and The Shawshank Redemption. She tilted her head. Some people say you've made choices, that your career could have been even bigger if you'd been less selective. For the time during the entire interview, Denzel smiled, truly smiled. It was calm, confident, almost amused. Let me ask you something, Joy, he said. By what measure is my career not big enough? A few quiet laughs rippled through the audience. I've worked continuously for 50 years. He began counting. I've won 2 Academy Awards. I've been nominated for 9. He gestured toward the stage, around him. I've performed on Broadway. Another pause. I've directed films. Then he leaned a bit forward, ready to finish his thought. I've made movies. I've worked with some of the directors and actors of my time, Denzel said, his voice steady and calm. Tell me, what exactly is missing? He shook his head slowly. The idea that success is about how many roles you play or how much money you make, that's a pretty shallow view of this job. I've picked roles that mattered to me. Roles that challenged me. Roles that let me say something I wanted to say. Not every choice was perfect. They were my choices, made for my reasons. I can live with that. He looked at Joy with a kind gaze. You know what I noticed about this interview? Every question you've asked is about what I haven't done, what I should have done differently, what I'm doing wrong. Not one question about what I have accomplished. Not one question about what I've learned. Not one about what I might offer to the people watching. He gestured around the studio. There are people who have never seen a Denzel Washington movie. Young people just starting out. People who might benefit from hearing about perseverance, faith, commitment, about doing the work day after day when nobody's watching. Instead, we spent 20 minutes on your agenda, on the gotcha questions you prepared, on your attempt to find fault in a life I've spent 70 years building. The weight of his words hung in the room. Joy's face turned red. Now I'm asking questions about a public figure, she said. No? Denzel replied quietly with authority. You're asking questions designed to provoke a reaction you can use. I've been doing interviews for 50 years, Joy. I know the difference between curiosity and attack. This is attack. He stood up slowly, every move commanding attention. I want to say something to everyone watching, he said, his voice intimate at once. Not to Joy, to you. Life is tough, he continued. Success is tougher. Staying successful while keeping your soul intact. That is the hardest thing of all. I've tried to do that. Some days I succeeded, some days I failed. I kept trying, I kept showing up, I kept putting the work and the ego second. He looked directly into the camera. To the young people watching, don't let anyone tell you what you can't be. Don't let anyone define your success by their standards. Don't let anyone convince you that you have to tear others down to lift yourself up. Do the work, trust the process, keep the faith. That's all I've ever done. It's brought me here. He turned back to Joy. I wish you well, Joy. I really do. I've said everything I came here to say, and I'm not continuing this conversation. He started walking toward the edge of the set, then stopped and turned back. One more thing, he said. You asked earlier about my silence on matters. Here's my position. In a world of people shouting, sometimes the bravest thing you can do is whisper, or stay quiet altogether. Let your life be your statement. Let your work be your argument. Let your character be your politics. He smiled, warm but final. I don't need to tell people what to think. I need to show them who I am. I've been doing that every day for 50 years. The people who understand will understand. The people who don't, won't. Either way, I'll keep doing what I do. That's all any of us can do. With that, Denzel Washington walked off the set of The View, leaving a studio that felt changed by his presence. The audience sat in silence before erupting into applause that seemed endless. Whoopi was visibly moved. Sarah wiped her eyes. Joy Behar sat quietly facing the reality that she had come to challenge a man and had instead encountered something far greater, unshakable dignity. What began as a confrontation had become sermon-like. Denzel hadn't defended himself much as transcended the entire premise of the attack. He showed that the best response to provocation isn't counterattack, it's elevation, rising above while somehow lifting everyone with you. The aftermath of that interview would be discussed for years, not as a battle Denzel had won, as a masterclass in handling hostility with grace. He hadn't humiliated Joy Behar. He had simply made the questions themselves seem small compared to the life he had lived. He reminded everyone watching why he is considered not a great actor, but a great man. For those who had watched him play Malcolm X, Reuben Carter, Alonzo Harris, they now saw the man behind the roles. Quieter than his characters, gentler, grounded. Beneath that gentleness was the same steel that made his performances unforgettable. This was the Denzel Washington, not the awards, not the characters. The person beneath them, a man of faith, family, and quiet conviction, proving once again that you don't have to be loud to be heard. Some would later say Joy Behar had been outmatched from the start. It wasn't about winning. Denzel didn't need to win. He simply refused to argue. He was completely himself, and that was enough to make every attack seem trivial by comparison. What do you think about this confrontation? Was Joy out of line? Was she just doing her job? Share your thoughts in the comments. Make sure to subscribe for more stories that will leave you speechless.